Of all the edible mushrooms that you might find in deepest, darkest winter, this is one of the best of them. It's called the Velvet Shank, also known as enoki or enokitake, though enokitake, as most people know it, is a Japanese cultivated mushroom, but it looks very different. It's grown in the dark, which produces a very different result. Velvet Shank is what I call a winter specialist. Certainly the most common months that I find it is December, and even more so January and February. It's quite common and grows in large clumps or clusters, normally overlapping each other, and it grows on many types of dead or diseased deciduous trees like elm or ash, oak and willow. The cap starts out quite convex in shape and it flattens out with age. The average width of a cap is around 10 centimeters, and it's this orangey yellow color, normally darker in the middle. It's smooth to touch and sometimes a bit slimy, especially in wet weather. The gills, believe it or not, start out white when they're young, but they then go yellow with age. The gills are of differing lengths, with some not reaching the stem, and they aren't particularly crowded. I'd say they're quite widely spaced. The stem is light yellow in young specimens, but dark brown to almost black eventually in more mature specimens, and lighter in colour near the top. It has a velvety feel in mature specimens. The velvet shank will not have any kind of ring on the stem. The average height of the mushroom is about 3 centimeters. The flesh is thin and quite light in colour, almost like an off-whitish colour with a yellowy tinge, though it does darken in more mature specimens to an orangey brown. It has a pleasant smell, and the spores, if you were to do a spore print, which I would highly recommend if you are new to velvet shank, are white. Technically they're very slightly off-white, but they're basically white. Now for the toxic lookalikes. The most serious toxic lookalike is the funeral bell. As the name suggests, that is deadly poisonous. However, the good news is this is not a mushroom you'd ever find in January or February, though some extra care is obviously needed if you're foraging for velvet shanks in November, as I have seen funeral bells as late as November. If you want any extra reassurance though, even in January, the funeral bell will have a very clear ring or skirt on the stem, whereas the velvet shank will not have any kind of ring on the stem. That's one of the easiest ways to tell the difference, other than of course a spore print, because the funeral bell spores will be rusty brown, completely different to the whitish spores of the velvet shank. The sulphur tuft is another poisonous mushroom, not deadly but poisonous. That one can be found all year round, and it also grows out of wood, but the sulphur tuft will not have a black stem, and the gills will have a greenish tinge to them too, and the colour of the mushroom, especially on top, is more of a sulphur yellow colour. And again, if you do a spore print, you'll find that the spores of the sulphur tuft are a purpley brown colour. The common rust gill is another mushroom that could be confused for the velvet shank. It's normally found in autumn, but has been known to appear in January. It's generally classed as inedible, but there are some people who think it might be a bit poisonous. But anyway, the spores again of that mushroom are a rust colour, so again, spore print is your friend. There's plenty of resources online, by the way. If you're listening to me saying spore print and you don't know what I'm talking about, it's quite easy to do. Anything else that could possibly be confused with a velvet shank and that are dangerous are very rare in January and will not have white spores.